Wallace stood at the observation deck of the Terran Endeavour, watching the swirling nebula outside with practiced indifference. His wife, Mabel, the Draconic ambassador to the Galactic Council, moved gracefully across the deck, her iridescent scales catching the light as she conversed with the Draconic delegation in their native tongue. Hey-o, everyone aboard. Wallace was the devoted human husband, the quiet consort, the man who smiled politely at diplomatic functions and nodded along to conversations he supposedly couldn't understand. They had no idea he was fluent in Draconic. The human is decorative, nothing more, one of the Draconic officials hissed, his forked tongue flickering with amusement. Tell me, Ambassador Mabel, does he serve any actual purpose? Wallace's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his datapad. He kept his expression neutral, his eyes still fixed on the stars. Mabel's laugh was melodic, a sound that once made his heart soar. Now it felt like broken glass. Commander Thex, you must understand. Humans are simple creatures. Wallace is kind, loyal, but intellectually, he struggles with basic diplomatic concepts. I've tried teaching him our language, but she made a dismissive gesture with her clawed hand. Some species simply lack the cognitive capacity. Thex's scales rippled with mirth. How unfortunate for you, Ambassador. Bound to such a primitive mate. The treaty requirements must be burdensome. The Human-Draconic Unity Treaty required interspecies marriages among leadership, Mabel replied smoothly. I drew the shortest straw, as you might say. But Wallace serves his purpose. He makes us appear unified to the Council. That's all that matters. Wallace set down his datapad with exaggerated care, the way a man who understood nothing might handle delicate equipment. Inside, his mind was racing through tactical calculations. The Draconic delegation was here for the Proxima negotiations, a critical summit that would determine trade routes, military alliances, and resource distribution across 6 sectors. Humanity had fought hard for a seat at this table, and Mabel was their primary representative, or so everyone believed. Speaking of the treaty, another Draconic officer interjected. Have you secured the human vote for Proposition 7 Alpha? Mabel's scales darkened, a sign of satisfaction. Of course, the humans will vote to cede the Kepler Belt mining rights to the Draconic Collective. They trust my recommendations completely. Fools. Wallace felt his jaw tighten. The Kepler Belt contained rare earth elements worth trillions. Humanity needed those resources for colony expansion and defense infrastructure, and the military corridor through human space. Thex pressed. Already drafted, Mabel said, pulling up a holographic document. Once they sign, our battle fleets will have unrestricted access through Terran sectors. The humans won't realize what they've agreed to until it's too late. Wallace turned slowly, making a show of stretching. He yawned, scratched his head in an exaggerated display of obliviousness, and shuffled toward the refreshment station. To the Draconics, he was just the bumbling human husband, incapable of understanding their superior language. He poured himself coffee, black, bitter, focused, and activated the subdermal communicator hidden beneath his skin. Control, this is Operative Wallace, callsign Shepard. Code Obsidian. The response was immediate in his earpiece. Confirmed, Shepard. We're receiving. Draconic delegation planning breach of treaty. They're manipulating our vote on Proposition 7 Alpha and inserting military corridor clauses into the Proxima Accords. Ambassador Mabel is compromised, actively working against human interests. There was a pause. Shepard, are you certain? Mabel is your wife. Wallace's voice was ice. I'm certain. Initiate protocol revelation. I'm going public. Understood. You have full authorization. Wallace deactivated the comm and walked back toward the group, still playing the role of the simple husband. Mabel glanced at him with barely concealed disdain. Wallace, darling, she said in English, her voice dripping with false affection. Why don't you go rest? The negotiations will be tedious for you. He smiled, genuinely this time. Actually, I think I'll stay. This should be interesting. The summit convened an hour later. The grand chamber of the Terran Endeavour was packed with representatives from 17 species. Mabel stood at the Terran delegation's podium, resplendent and confident. Honored delegates, she began in Galactic Standard, humanity is pleased to support Proposition 7 Alpha, ceding Kepler Belt mining operations to point of order. Every head turned. Wallace stood from his position in the observer section, his voice clear and carrying. Mabel's scales paled. Wallace, what are you? Ambassador Mabel, he interrupted, switching smoothly to flawless Draconic. You seem surprised that your stupid human husband can speak your language. Allow me to clarify some misconceptions. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Draconic delegation froze, their expressions ranging from confusion to dawning horror. Wallace pulled up a holographic recording, every word from the observation deck conversation. For the past 6 months, I've documented 247 instances of diplomatic manipulation, treaty violations, and intelligence gathering conducted by Ambassador Mabel against human interests, all while she believed her simple husband couldn't understand. Mabel's scales flushed deep crimson, rage mixed with humiliation. You deceived me. I learned from the best, Wallace replied coldly. Humanity's intelligence services recruited me specifically for this assignment. We needed someone in deep cover, someone the Draconics would underestimate. He smiled without warmth. Turns out, humans have this remarkable ability. We can pretend to be stupid while actually being 3 steps ahead. Commander Thex rose to his feet. This is preposterous. The Unity Treaty, which your government has systematically violated, Wallace cut in. He displayed document after document, communication logs, military orders. You've used this diplomatic marriage as cover for espionage, sabotage, and exploitation. Well, no more. The Galactic Council's arbiter, a towering crystalline being, pulsed with authority. This evidence is compelling. Ambassador Mabel, you are hereby stripped of diplomatic immunity. Commander Thex, your delegation is expelled. Mabel turned to Wallace, her eyes blazing. You destroyed everything. Our marriage was never real, Wallace said quietly. You made that clear every time you called me stupid, every time you laughed at humanity's expense. You thought we were primitive? Humans have survived ice ages, world wars, and our own worst instincts. We learn patience. We learn to watch, to listen, to strike when the moment is right. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper in Draconic. You called it cognitive incapacity. We call it strategic deception. There's a difference between being stupid and letting your enemy think you are. Security escorted Mabel and the Draconic delegation from the chamber. Wallace stood alone at the podium, addressing the assembled council. Humanity requests a full investigation into Draconic diplomatic activities and renegotiation of all current treaties. We also propose stricter oversight of interspecies political marriages to prevent future exploitation. The arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber. Granted, this council recognizes humanity's patience and tactical acumen. Perhaps we have all underestimated your species. Wallace allowed himself a small smile. That's what we're counting on. Later, in his quarters, Wallace stared out at the stars. His communicator chimed, Admiral Chun from Earth Command. Outstanding work, Shepard. You've secured humanity's position for a generation. Thank you, Admiral. But I didn't do it for glory. I did it because someone needed to prove that underestimating humans is the biggest mistake any species can make. What will you do now? Wallace thought of Mabel's shocked expression, of the Draconic's arrogant dismissal, of every species that looked at humanity and saw nothing but primitive apes playing at civilization. I think I'll find someone who doesn't think I'm stupid, he said. Preferably someone human. We understand each other better. He closed the comm and smiled. Out there, among the stars, countless species plotted and schemed. They saw humanity as newcomers, as inferiors, as obstacles. They never saw the trap until it closed. And that, Wallace reflected, was exactly how humanity liked it.